Give me a go, Matt. Good evening, everyone. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to another NM Wednesday night live. It's so exciting. We're on our third show, and I tell you, I'm having a lot of fun. And tonight, we're going to have a lot of fun with a very special guest. She's from Chicago. She's one of the best and most important violinists of her generation. Yes, we're talking about Rachel Barton Pine. And we're going to start listening to Rachel play an excerpt from Mendelssohn's Violin Concerto. Here, the first movement of Mendelssohn's beautiful violin concerto. Wasn't that gorgeous? So beautiful. So it is my great pleasure to invite Rachel to our stage. Rachel, are you there?
I'm almost there. Oh, you have to let me in. Oh, did you invite me to turn on the video?
Yes.
He said yes.
Saying you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
There we go. Okay.
There
Hi,
you are.
everyone.
Hello. Welcome to our show. How you doing, Rachel?
Great, thanks.
So, cheers to you. That was a lovely Mendelssohn.
I think this is the first interview I've ever had where I was told be sure to have a glass of wine handy. So I like that. You've set a wonderful new trend.
Oh my God. You know, one of the things about this quarantine, I can't wait till they open the bars and restaurants again so I can drink a little less, you know?
Very well said.
Because, I mean, you can't really do it without some good wine or some sparkling. So you're speaking from Chicago, your hometown.
Yep.
Born and raised, and you've lived there most of your life, I guess.
Yeah, my whole life. It's very convenient. It's centrally located in the U.S. and I can get to everywhere I need to from O'Hare Airport. And it's people say, oh, the winters are so awful, but normally I'm in a different city or country every week, so I never have to deal with it continuously. So I don't know. I just love the art scene, the friendliness of the people, the sophistication of the architecture. It's and of course all my friends are here.
Oh, it's a great town. I love it every time I go. And we'll talk about once I was in Chicago and you gave me a beautiful tour of Chicago, especially a very nice blues club that you're very familiar with. But before we get to that, I'm talking from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And this is the wonder of technology, right? Because we have our beautiful New Mexico Philharmonic in New Mexico, and all the people that are listening to us. At this time, I'd like to thank the New Mexico Philharmonic, our sponsors, our patrons, all of our subscribers, all of the supporters, the musicians of the New Mexico Philharmonic, of course, those that are listening to us and watching us. Um, Good evening to all of you. And you know, Rachel, this is our very beginning. This is just the third show. Up until now, our executive director, Marian Tanau, who you know very well, was also co-hosting with me. But you know, Marian agreed to wear a jacket and a tie, but he absolutely refused to wear trousers, so his shoes even. So we had to kick. So we had to kick him out.
Well, I won't make any jokes about what you or I might be wearing.
Better not, right? You never know these days. Anyway, it's lovely to have you with us. You know, I can't forget the last concert we did together in Albuquerque with the great New Mexico Philharmonic, and it was one of the most unusual concerts that I ever conducted. You know, because we had you in the first half playing Vivaldi Four Seasons, which was fantastic. And I don't usually conduct those, you know, because it's such a small chamber like a piece, and often it's better without a conductor than with him, right?
Yeah. Well, it all depends on the size of the strings, the acoustics of the room, all that stuff.
But I actually enjoyed it very much, and it was so beautiful. But the strange thing is that we did Bruckner 7 in the second half, right? How odd.
Definitely an unusual pairing.
To pair these
but actually
pieces
both men of religion, right? I mean, they have that in common.
Absolutely. They both wrote music in the church atmosphere, you know, in Vivaldi in Venice and Bruckner in St. Florian in Austria. And that was, it was very, very special, unique combination. But we go back a long time. I don't remember when it was the first time we performed together.
2001.
Oh my God.
Or was it 2002? Well, I think maybe it was 2002. So almost 20 years. And it was all the way on the other side of the planet in New Zealand.
Exactly. We were just kids. Let's just make that very clear to everyone. You know, teenagers, almost. But that was amazing experience because we were there for 3 weeks. I remember, you know, 1 week just rehearsing 2 concertos, Beethoven violin concerto and Prokofiev concerto number 2.
Yeah. Well, the New Zealand Symphony is the world's most traveled orchestra without ever leaving New Zealand because they play regular series in all the major cities. So as the guest artists, we got like this whole amazing tour of the country, North Island, South Island, everything. And just for the price of playing some concerts, it was a pretty lucky deal.
It was wonderful. And it's such a beautiful country to travel through, you know, by car mostly. We only took a plane, I think, to go to Auckland, right?
Yeah.
But we were based in Wellington. I remember this small town we played at, Napier, which it's considered the Art Deco capital of the world. Do you remember that? Every building in the town was Art Deco. It was like South Beach, Miami, all over the city. You know?
Yeah. Well, so much contrasts and, you know, different landscapes. And then, of course, going to the museum was so much fun to see all of the Maori culture and everything.
And all the sheep, come on.
Yeah.
There's sheep everywhere. You know, they have more sheep in New Zealand than they have people. So that was, exactly, that was a lot of fun. And anyway, from after New Zealand, we played was it US?
Yeah, the next one was in Rio. And then after that, a couple of years later in Calgary.
Exactly. So we did, we pretty much cover most of the repertoire. You know,
we've done all the periods. We've done Baroque period, classical period, romantic period, 20th century. Yeah, lots and lots of different stuff.
But you know, it's quite interesting because two of the great violin concertos we have actually not done together, which is Tchaikovsky and Brahms,
Yeah, and
right?
my violin here
We've done
was
Prokofiev.
personally chosen by Brahms himself for one of his proteges, Marie
Oh
Soldat.
my God.
So,
Wow. Is it so what is your instrument? Can you tell us about your instrument?
yeah, it's made in the year 1742 in Cremona, Italy, of course, by Guarneri del Gesù. And
Wow.
it's well, it was considered one of his best years, 42 and 43. And there are only about, I think, 40 Guarneri del Gesus in the world and something like 600 Strads. I might be getting those numbers a little bit wrong, but there's definitely like fewer than a tenth as many Guarneris as Stradivarius. And Guarneris have a really deep, rich, full, powerful sound. So sometimes I compare it to white wine and red wine, actually. That's like the perfect analogy, that neither is inherently better, but some people tend to favor one or the other. And for me, it's always the Guarneri and the red wine.
So I mean, this violin has fantastic history. And how long have you had it for now?
Yeah, so I first started using it in 2001. 2001 or 2002. Actually, I guess the same year we first met, because I was doing the Brahms. I was recording the Brahms concerto with the Chicago Symphony, and I was playing a different Del Gesù at the time. But a friend knew this one with knew the owner of this one with the connection to the composer, and arranged for me to borrow it. And I just fell in love because I had liked other violins. I'd been very, very lucky to borrow a long-term loan of an Amati, a Stradivari, but somehow when I played this particular Del Gesù, it just felt like everything I'd always dreamed of, and I didn't want to give it back. And luckily, the owner liked me, and I've gotten to play it ever since. But it's so fun to think about. I mean, because not only did Brahms choose it for Marie Soldat, who was one of the first champions of his concerto, but she was one of his inner circle of chamber musicians, which means that this violin got to jam with Brahms.
It's amazing. What a privilege, right? To have an instrument like that. And, you know, I mean, the composers we performed, we already mentioned Beethoven and we mentioned Prokofiev, but we did the Barber, we did Bernstein, Vivaldi, of course, Saint-Saëns. We did the Carmen Fantasy with the arrangement of Sarasate. That's so much repertoire, but not the two big concertos, which I think are the biggest violin concertos or the most popular ones. You know that funny story about between Tchaikovsky and Brahms, right? Because they were contemporaries and they actually wrote the violin concertos almost around the same time, right? And I think there was actually an encounter or an exchange between Tchaikovsky and Brahms, on which Brahms turns to Tchaikovsky and says, you know, your music sounds better than what it really is.
Oh my goodness.
And Tchaikovsky turns to Brahms and says, and your music is better than what it sounds. Can you imagine?
I kind of know what you're getting at, though, because Tchaikovsky really is about like the emotion and somehow the experience of it. And, you know, Brahms, you know, it's amazing on the page and you have to really understand it to bring it to life. But they're, you know, you can't compare them. They're great in their own. Yeah, but that's funny. All these rivalries and bad reviews.
Exactly.
That's my favorite.
These two great geniuses, you know, write this music that's the most gorgeous violin music, and then, you know, there's kind of you know, say these statements to each other which are absolutely absurd.
Actually, just not too long ago, I played a concert with an orchestra, and I can't for the life of me remember which orchestra and what exactly was on the program, but I asked the conductor, how does this repertoire tonight go together? And he said, well, the second composer hated the music of the first composer, and the third composer hated the music of the second composer. And that was like literally the theme of the evening. I thought that was brilliant.
That's perfect. That's wonderful. Well, speaking of Tchaikovsky, let's hear a video with a recording of Rachel playing the first movement or an excerpt from the first movement from Tchaikovsky's Violin Concerto. This is Rachel Barton, violinist. Wow, that's gorgeous. Tell us, how was it to perform Tchaikovsky in Russia, Rachel?
Yeah, I mean, this was just such an honor, and also just intimidating because I studied this music for all these years, feel like I understood it, but then I'm playing it with people where it's their lifeblood, and am I really going to do it right? But everybody was very kind and said they liked my performance. And actually, the most awkward moment is I was actually pregnant with my daughter during this concert,
Wow.
but it was early on enough that I hadn't announced it to the world yet. And so there, kept being all of these vodka toasts, all these vodka toasts. And I was trying to like pretend I was drinking, but not really drink. And I couldn't tell people, I didn't want to insult anybody, but I also didn't want to like destroy my child. And I was like, what do I do with all this vodka? So,
I know you go to these Russian and Ukrainian dinners and they toast like every 3 minutes and it's bottoms up, right? You just have to drink the whole shot glass and 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 they keep on toasting to different friends. And here is to Tchaikovsky, and here is to freedom, and here is to love and poetry. And then they start reciting poetry. They know poetry by heart. I mean, I've rarely encountered people that know their own poetry so well and they love it so much. So it's a great tradition they have. And you being pregnant of Sylvia, how old is Sylvia
well,
now?
now she's 8. Yeah, so I was pregnant with her when we were together in Brazil also the first time.
Exactly. And that, I can't believe Sylvia is already 8. And of course, I remember you were always homeschooling Sylvia because you took Sylvia with you in all your travels, and also your great husband, whom I love, Greg, and who's such a phenomenal guy. And tell us about Sylvia. She's been
Yeah, so
homeschooled all her
so it's a
life.
Very unusual childhood, but I figure some kids grow up on a farm, some kids grow up in an apartment building or the suburbs, and my daughter's growing up in hotel rooms. But it's such a wonderful life because she gets to see a different city or country every week, and I'm busy rehearsing, and she gets to go do all the tourism things and nature things, museums, just everything. And one day she's in the rainforest in Costa Rica, the next day she's at the Tower of London, and of course, we've been homeschooling her the whole way through. And I always joke it's not even homeschooling; it's airplane schooling, backstage schooling, wherever we are.
Which
So
is,
actually, we've been lucky in this time because we've just carried on as always and not had to figure things out like so many families.
and that's the best education, really. What great opportunities. And I remember you brought her to Albuquerque in your last visit. Did you get to do some fun things in New Mexico?
Well, I've been there honestly like a dozen times to Albuquerque, one of my all-time favorite towns, and I've played with the Philharmonic with many different conductors before you and done other concerts around there and in Santa Fe and other cities throughout the state. And yeah, I was actually just thinking of New Mexico a couple days ago because I got out some of my red chili and was thinking, okay, I better make sure I don't run out before I can get back there.
Speaking of New Mexico, I haven't been there in almost 3 months, and I can't wait to go back. The beautiful sunshine, the beautiful weather, the Sandia Mountains, and oh my God, I have to say, I miss it so much. Can't wait to be there with our friends. The New Mexico, I always tell people this because it's one of the best audiences in North America. That famous joke. There is a famous conductor in a famous city with a famous orchestra in the Midwest. And he used to say that instead of getting a standing ovation, he would get a standing evacuation. And often, in North America, you don't get that warmth, in that reception from an audience, but never in Albuquerque. We got the best audience. They always love to hear encores, and you have the
Absolutely.
best encores. I have to say, you have great encores
Oh,
because
thank you. Well, I remember one specific encore in Albuquerque. I played these sort of virtuoso variations by Paganini on the Neapolitan air, Nel Corpo non mi sento. And it's almost like just so over the top, it's comical because he's like doing all this crazy stuff, and then he has the melodramatic minor key variation, and then I don't know, it's just silly. And normally audiences take it very seriously because you're doing a lot of pyrotechnical tricks and you're playing a historic work by a famous composer, and they're very polite and they sit quietly. And I was so happy because the Albuquerque audience, they like laughed at every moment when, and I was just like, they get it. This is an amazing public.
absolutely. So just get your encores ready next time because you probably will have to play more than one. And well, let's hear now not an encore, but the cadenza from the Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto, played by great violinist Rachel Barton. Oh my God, that's awesome. Is it true that when Tchaikovsky wrote this concerto, people thought it was impossible to be played?
Yeah, they said it was music that stinks to the ear and the violin was beaten black and blue. I actually have that wonderful book called A Lexicon of Musical Invective, and it's a compendium of every bad review of every famous composer. So if you ever get a bad review, then you're like, well, at least my bad review wasn't as bad as Beethoven's bad reviews or whatever.
Oh my God. As Bernstein said, once he was giving an interview and he said, I have traveled all over the world. I never saw a statue or a monument that was dedicated to a music critic. Rachel, we have a question from one of our listeners and our audience members. They're curious to know, what is your daughter, what is Sylvia playing these days?
Yeah, well, Sylvia's keeping really busy, and she's loving the fact that she doesn't have to wait to get my help with her practicing around my schedule. Like now, I can just practice with her in the middle of the afternoon, no rehearsals interfering. It's quite the luxury. So she does regular violin, of course, and then she also does Baroque violin, some Scottish fiddling, some American fiddling. She's been learning viola for her chamber music. She does a little bit of piano and music theory because her main ambition in life is to be a composer, actually. So she loves to just improvise all day long. She also
Wow.
sings. She recently did the Chichester Psalms. Um, and yeah, so it's lots of different stuff, keeps me on my toes. But yeah, so she's playing, the usual concertos and whatever kids learn at age 8. And she's finished up some Mozart and Haydn, and she'll be doing Accolade soon. But she just did a recital on Saturday. I'm so proud of her. It was her 1200th day of practicing in a row without ever missing a day. And she played 22 different pieces by Black composers from all over the world, including the wonderful Brazilian composer Shahina Gonzaga, who's one of her favorites.
Wow, fantastic. Tell us about this project with the Black composers. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, so my RBP Foundation, back in 2001, we realized that there weren't really uh, pedagogical materials that spoke to different kids' backgrounds and had the music and the history. A lot of music by composers of African descent has been long since out of print or never published in manuscript only. And so we collected more than 900 pieces by more than 350 composers, men and women from all over the planet, 4 centuries worth of music. And we released about a year and a half ago our first pedagogical volume for violin for sort of elementary level. And now we're going on to the rest of our series, and we have lots of resources on our musicbyblackcomposers.org website with children's books. We have a coloring book of Black composers, a timeline poster, a directory of living composers, which has almost 200 names, actually maybe more than 200 at this point. Anyway, it's just been a really exciting project to be able to share all this great music.
It's really incredible and so unique. I mean, this is one of the first such projects that I have ever heard about. And that's fantastic. Congratulations on that.
Oh, thanks. Well,
Now,
it's, we started doing it back when, not as many people were interested. And it's been wonderful to see how more and more people are really eager to discover this music. And luckily, we've already dug it up and it's ready to go.
absolutely, absolutely. And in the beginning, I mentioned in one of my last visits to Chicago, I had so much fun with you, and you took me to your favorite blues club, which
Yep.
is something that you really love. And recently, you had the Blues Festival in Chicago. How did that happen?
Oh, it was so sad. Normally it's outdoors and there's thousands of people and it's just the most wonderful environment and you can hear it from miles away just in the air. And this time it was just, streamed on the computer, but better than nothing. And um there's nothing like Chicago blues. That's really my second favorite music because it's the music I grew up with right here at home. And actually, 2 albums ago, my last album was a concerto record, but 2 albums ago, I made an album I'd been dreaming of for a long time, which was a collection of classical music, about 100 years worth of different composers, all inspired in one way or another by the blues. So it was this wonderful kind of classical blues. Well, it was called Blues Dialogues, which was actually the name of one of the pieces, but perfectly describes the concept.
Well, speaking of blues, Rachel, we have a surprise to our audience today. For the first time, our guests agreed to play live, especially for you. So we're going to hear music by composer Perkinson, and this is called the Louisiana's Blues Strut. Amazing. Wow. Oh my
That's so
God.
cool.
Thank you for that. I actually could feel the energy of live music. This is fantastic. Oh my God. Well, thank you so much. That was such a treat. And thank you for participating with us tonight. And I
Oh my
can't
God.
wait to have you back with us with the New Mexico Philharmonic, Rachel. So let's hope and pray that it's not going to be too long that we'll be
Absolutely.
back together on stage. I want to
Okay. Well,
thank every one of you. Thank you so much, our incredible audience from Albuquerque and from all over the world. Please join us next week. Our guest will be guitarist Jason Vion, and I'm very much looking forward to that as well. So thank you for joining us. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time.
all right. Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.